So I have an iRating of 7.7k as of the 13th of March 2025. So yeah, hopefully that continues to increase and not decrease. And having had an account on iRacing for almost 8 years, I'd say at this point I've got a decent amount of experience on this sim. And as we know in sim racing, even if you're driving really well, you're doing everything right, if you're not on good settings, you'll never fully maximize your potential. So from the very top to the bottom, let's have a look and check out my settings on iRacing. Okay, so before we get into the game, we'll have a look at my wheel and pedal settings. I'm on a SimRacing 2 Ultimate wheelbase and Heisenbelt Ultimate Plus pedals. So the profile I actually copied was Daniel Isaacson on the paddock within True Drive, and it was his Porsche GT3 Cup FFB profile. I had one before a couple of weeks ago, and then I tried this one, and it just gave me a little bit more feeling in the middle of the corner, and I was just able to be a little bit more consistent with this profile, considering the iRacing FFB can feel quite numb and dead at times, so having a bit more feeling is always a good thing. So you can just go and download this profile yourself if you have a SimRacing wheelbase, but I'll show you the individual settings anyway, because why not? So you can see if I flick through it here, 900 degrees wheel rotation. A lot of the effects and damping and stuff is quite low or turned off, so you get quite a lot of raw feedback coming through the wheelbase. So yeah, those are the SimRacing settings. And in terms of Heisenbelt, you can see I run a pretty basic pedal preset really. You've got linear pedal curves, clutch, brake and throttle. The dead zones are quite large just to stop me like brake dragging and carrying a bit of throttle when I don't want to be, because the pedals are quite sensitive. 57 kilos of brake, which is probably the main thing in this particular area. I've got a soft elastomer in the brake pedal. I have the same for every sim. I think it's better for trail braking and you can be a bit more consistent. If it's really hard, it's a little bit like a switch. You know, you're either 100% or 0. This allows me to be quite precise with my braking. You know, iRacing, especially when you're driving cars like the LMP2 or Formula cars where you can lock up quite easily, it's a decent amount of pressure to get to 100% without locking up, basically. For me, this was the sweet spot. It's going to be a little bit different depending on how much strength you've got in your leg. Some people might have more, some people might have less. But yeah, those are my pedal settings. And in terms of third-party apps I run with iRacing before we load up the game, or the sim, sorry, I run trading paints, so you get all the custom liveries and stuff. I run RaceLab overlays, which a lot of people when I'm streaming ask, what overlays are you running? So yeah, I run RaceLab apps down here. And yeah, the final one is Garage 61, which I've started using since the beginning of the year, just for telemetry, and if I do any laps, I can go back and look at the data. It's really convenient and easy to look back at your laps and look at your inputs and lines and stuff, comparing it to your teammates and whatever. Yeah, those are the 3 third-party apps I use: Trading Paints, RaceLab, and Garage 61. Okay, so we are on iRacing. Let me quickly go into test drive and we will quickly see what settings I run in game. Go to options. Let's look at the first page in the drive menu. So again, 900 wheel rotation, got a load cell brake, so I'm going to tick that box. The most intriguing setting that is probably different to most people is I run the brake cap at 80% in game, which conveniently iRacing made into a setting before you had to either do it in your pedal profile or you had to go into the actual files and do some weird stuff. Yeah, this is very nice and easy to do now. You can make it whatever you want. I like 80. I've tested it quite extensively, and in pretty much any car apart from GTPs where you don't want a cap by the looks of it. For me, having a cap seems to benefit my driving style in iRacing. So it might not benefit you, but it might. So definitely something worth trying if I were you. The clutch bite point I run at 51% for the LMP2, so it's going to be different for any car. That's so you can get a nice pull away, you know, coming out of the pits. You obviously don't want to lose time there. Force feedback, all of these boxes ticked. 2.4 on the strength. So I think overall, because I'm 100% in the wheel profiler, I'm probably generating about 7 or 8 Newton meters of torque. So not much. Auto tick this box so it matches the force feedback for your wheelbase. Intensity 50%, no smoothing. No smoothing, no damping, no minimum force. Driving aids, anti-stall clutch. All the rest of them for me are turned off. And then I only have auto engine start just to make it a bit more convenient when I'm practicing really. But so yeah, that's the drive one. If we go to options, you can see, I'm not going to talk you through every single one, but you can have a good look there and see what I run. A lot of these I hide just because they're quite annoying to have on your screen when you're driving. I don't have the delta bar from the game. I have a delta from RaceLab overlays actually. I'm running metric units in terms of the measurements because it's just better. And yeah, FOV, we'll get to the cockpit in a minute. We'll have a look and see what it all looks like. Under the MISC menu, I don't really adjust too much in here, to be honest. I think it actually might all be default. There's not really too much here unless you want to really get into the audio. There's not too much to play around with here. Graphics is a very important one. So I've recently just got a new PC, and these are the new graphics settings I run for that PC. So I've been able to go up with the graphics a little bit. I limit the frame rate at 243 because my refresh rate is 240. So if there's a lot of cars around, it does dip to like 150, but when I'm on my own or if there's only a couple of cars, it will generally stick to 240 FPS quite comfortably, which is pretty good. It's insane, to be honest, because I'm on an ultra-wide 1440p monitor. That's insane. And the game looks quite good with these graphic settings as well. I could go higher, but I'm finding that trade-off between FPS and nice-looking graphics. It's a hard balance to get, to be honest. So within the monitor settings, so I've got the Samsung G9 Odyssey monitor. I got all the measurements and stuff online, and this was what I came up with, just so the game warps around the screen properly and it's not out of proportion, which if you don't adjust this properly, it will look a little bit weird on the sides. The FOV calculator, I didn't really use that, to be honest. I never really use FOV calculators. I just go off what I feel is natural, you know? And yeah, because I use RaceLab overlays, I can't run it in full screen mode. That's another thing as well. So, you know, I'm probably losing a little bit of FPS there, but I do like the overlays probably more than I like the FPS. I mean, once iRacing implements some really good looking overlays, then I probably will go to them because it's better for FPS. But at the minute, RaceLabs is perfectly fine. Let's see. So replay graphic settings, exactly the same as the normal graphic settings, just so it doesn't look different. Is my OCD kicking in there, to be honest? But an important one for me to tick, to be honest, is ask to save replay on quit, because otherwise I would always forget. That's a very handy one to have, especially when I'm making videos and stuff. Audio settings, so I turn the audio for the spotter off. I find it really annoying. But I do have the text because it can come out with some very valuable information, to be fair. I turn the main volume right down. I don't really adjust the other stuff. Yeah, I actually have voice chat off, which I'm considering turning on because there's usually quite a lot of funny stuff that gets said in the heat of the moment. So yeah, maybe for streams and videos, that might be quite a laugh. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below, actually. Shall I turn voice chat on or not? And then finally, controls. So I haven't got many buttons assigned, to be honest, but, you know, just the standard ones. Ignition, starter, or when you go to the grid, you need to start the engine, obviously. Brake bias, traction control, the black box so you can navigate all the stuff for your pit stop. Traction control toggle. I do like to have a little play around with that sometimes if I'm exiting a corner and there's a big curb. It might save a few thousandths just holding that down so the TC doesn't engage, so you get a slightly better exit. You know, marginal gains and all that. And yeah, that is pretty much it in terms of in-game settings. If we go and hop in the car a minute, so you can see when the overlays load up and stuff, what do I have? I've got the standings in the top left, the weather radar down here, which has the wind speed, which does make a big difference on iRacing, so that's really handy to have. Lap times at the top, delta in the middle, track status in terms of how much rubber's on the track, just under the mirror there in the top right, fuel calculator, which is obviously very important if I don't have a spotter, track map in the bottom left, and then a relative thing in the bottom right just to see what car is in front, what car is behind. It's quite handy in multi-class when, you know, you're coming up behind a car. Is it a GTP? Is it a GT3? That's all good stuff to know. And yeah, you can see as I drive away, my FPS does drop a little bit, but generally as I go around the lap on my own in test drive, it will comfortably stay above 200, you know. I think it's because I'm recording and stuff, it's slightly lower usually. If I'm not recording, it would easily stay at 240. Now, as many of you will know, in the last year or two, I've had my fair share of PC issues. You know, screen freezes, low FPS stutters, USB disconnects. Hey, this is so bad. 70 FPS. I'm running really low graphics as well. It's fair to say, in those couple of years, it's cost me a fair amount of iRating. And yeah, not gonna lie, it's been driving me absolutely insane at points. But now that's all been sorted because PC Specialist have swooped in and sent me a beefy new PC that's round the back for me to do all of my sim racing on moving forward, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. I suppose the main thing specs-wise is an Intel Ultra 9 CPU, NVIDIA 5070 Ti GPU, 64 gig of RAM, which is a lot, two 2TB SSDs, and it's all in a nice little banging case with the RGB and the lights, and it does look really nice actually, to be honest. But yeah, a full spec list of the PC will be down in the description below if you are interested to check it out more, along with a cheeky little £30 discount for you lot at PC Specialist, which might come in handy. Yeah, just make sure you use the code JAMES with 3 A's at checkout, and yeah, that £30 discount will apply. But yeah, finally, a big thank you to PC Specialist for coming in and sorting out a lot of my issues. I can't wait to do the whole year on this banging PC. Should be good. Couple of other things then. So if we look at my seating position in FOV, your first initial thoughts would be I'm sat quite high up and I'm sat quite far back, but if I was to rotate the wheel like that, the in-game hand of the driver is perfectly in line with my hand from where I'm sat visually right now. So I'd say my eyes are halfway up my monitor and they're probably 3/4 of a meter away. So from where I'm sat, this looks pretty natural, pretty comfortable. I can see quite a lot, and it just feels right. So I think, you know, in my streams and in my videos, it may not look perfectly normal for you lot, but it's one of those things, isn't it? It's all personal preference when it comes to FOV and seating position. So this feels comfortable for me, and I think it's one of those where you can have an FOV calculator. I think it's more to do with, are you comfortable? You can see everything that you need to see. I think those are the most important things. Also with Race Labs, so I have a setup cover, which for the special events and stuff, when I have a really nice setup underneath me, it's pretty essential when I'm streaming and stuff to hide the setup. So that's a nice handy feature within Race Labs. And earlier I mentioned I use Garage 61 for the data and telemetry to go back and look at my laps and look at my inputs and see how can I improve. I have used Motec in the past, and it's a little bit more clunky, but I can understand why some people use it if they don't want a Garage 61 account. Fair enough. So in the description below, there'll be a settings folder with a lot of the settings we've already looked at already, but it also will include instructions on how to get Motec up and running on iRacing should you want to go down that route. It's got my Motec workbook that I used to use in iRacing, so if that interests you, go and have a look at that. On the flip side though, if there's any of you settings nerds that think I could do anything better or improve anything, please let me know down in the comments below, because I always like finding new stuff that makes things better or easier. So yeah, every day's a school day and all that. Ciao for now.